Good afternoon, everybody. Shavua Tov. Welcome to another week of the Israel Brief, brought to you by Lay of the Land. I'm Rolene Marks, your host, bringing you the top stories from Israel and surrounds every Monday to Thursday. If you are viewing this on Facebook, and we know that there are a lot of restrictions at the moment, we would love it if you shared it. And if you are viewing us on YouTube at the Israel Brief, please join our growing community by clicking on the red subscribe button. But let's get into it. Let's get a look at what is happening in the news. And we start with the good news. That is, as of yesterday, Israel started to lift up out of lockdown and open our economy. Yesterday, gyms, malls, stores, museums, places of entertainment opened to those who are vaccinated and do have what we call the green passport, which can be downloaded via an app on your phone. And all you have to do is have both of your inoculations and wait the regulated 7 days. So apparently yesterday, the malls and the sports centers were flooded with people eager to get back, and it is really starting to feel a little bit more normal, not entirely where we would like to be yet, but feeling a lot better. And in some really encouraging stats coming in from the Ministry of Health, we have learned that the vaccine stops 98.9% of COVID deaths, an extraordinary statistic. And this continues as Israel is leading the world with our vaccination rollout process. However, the health ministry did warn that with the festival of Purim coming up on Thursday night and Friday, we will be subject to a nighttime curfew. This is to try and discourage people from gathering in large groups. And at the moment, there are still restrictions in place, even though we are opening up with the number of people who can gather at homes and at places of worship. But we took what feels like a giant step, even though it is opening up slowly but surely. After months of lockdown and frustration over the last year, it feels like a little step towards normality. What doesn't feel normal, though, is news that last week there was an oil spill bringing oil and tar onto the beaches of Israel. At the moment, the Israeli authorities have closed all Mediterranean Sea beaches. The tar and the oil spill is wreaking havoc on marine life and on our beaches, and it's still unknown where the spill has come from. Many civilians, along with the IDF, have worked very hard to try and clean up the mess. However, some people have taken ill, and of course we are worried about the effect that this also has on marine animals and life. And in a very unusual move, authorities have said that there will be a 7-day gag order on the investigation into this oil spill. Meanwhile, the IDF announced earlier today that they had uncovered what could be a substantial threat to naval boats off the coast of the Gaza Strip. They haven't explained exactly what the threat was. As we can understand, it is of military sensitivity, but they are aware of it and are taking every safety measure. And our last story of the day is absolutely no joke. Many of you are familiar with the show Saturday Night Live, which is kind of iconic in the realms of comedy and features a whole lot of skits. Well, on Saturday night, during one of their skits that is sort of news related, that mimics a newsroom, Michael Shea, the host, when talking about Israel's vaccination program, said that Israel had vaccinated half its citizens, and they must be the Jewish half. Now, the American Joint Commission, along with the Israeli authorities here, our ambassador to the United States and the UN, who happens to be the same person, it's Gilad Erdan, have demanded an apology from NBC, the network which runs SNL, and the producer, the executive producer, Lorne Michael, as well as host Michael Shea. The AJC have launched a petition, and the Israeli authorities have demanded an apology, saying that this goes back to old blood libels and anti-Semitic tropes blaming Jews for contagious diseases. They referred to the Black Plague, where many Jews were killed because it was believed that due to Jewish people kind of surviving the plague, they must have either caused it and been able to prevent themselves from catching the plague. It also comes at a time when we've seen a significant increase in anti-Semitism around the world, often leading to violence and sometimes death. And throughout this pandemic, Jews have been blamed for the cause of the pandemic. So not only does this harken back to an ancient blood libel, but is also factually incorrect in that all of Israeli citizens who are eligible, no matter what sector of society they come from, Arab, Christian, Jewish, are all eligible and encouraged to get the vaccine. And people might be wondering, and they certainly have weighed in on social media platforms like Twitter, why we are getting upset. We are getting upset because this does have a knock-on effect. It's not something that we can laugh off and brush away. This does have an effect on Jews around the world who are blamed for this, and very, very often on our young people when they are on campus at university, who are often subject to some of the most cruel anti-Semitic treatments. So we're not going to tolerate this, and if you do happen to see the AJC petition, please fill it in. So those are the top stories from Israel. Don't forget you can check out our original content online on our website at www.layoftheland.online. As Israel exits lockdown, so people settle up to ride. What am I talking about? Well, find out. Stephen Schulman has written an article all about cycling culture here in Israel. It's on our website. It's also on our Facebook page. While you are there, please give it a share and like us and follow us. We are also on Twitter at layoftheland5. And don't forget that YouTube channel at the Israel Brief. So with today's headlines, I'm Rolene Marks. This is the Israel Brief. We'll chat again tomorrow.